Power, Secrecy, and Scandal, the Redpath Mystery in Gilded Age, Montreal. On the evening of June 13, 1901, a profound tragedy struck one of Montreal's most prominent families. Ada Maria Mills Redpath, a 59-year-old widow, and her 24-year-old son, Jocelyn Clifford Redpath, were found dead from gunshot wounds in Ada's bedroom within their mansion on Sherbrooke Street. The official verdict, rendered the following day by a coroner's inquest, declared the incident a murder-suicide. The jury concluded that Clifford, in a state of temporary insanity, brought on by an epileptic attack, shot his mother before taking his own life. This resolution, however, was far from satisfactory for many observers. A number of contradictions and irregularities have fueled speculation for over a century, transforming the case into an enduring Canadian mystery. The core questions that continue to puzzle historians and amateur detectives alike include the conflicting testimonies about the number of firearms found at the scene, the surprising lack of police involvement, and the unusual haste with which the investigation was conducted and the victims buried. These anomalies suggest that the official narrative was not a full accounting of the events. The case serves as a remarkable lens through which to view the social norms, legal frameworks, and power dynamics of Canada's turn-of-the-century elite, where the preservation of a family's reputation often took precedence over the pursuit of criminal justice. Part 1. The Context of a Gilded Age Tragedy. The Redpath Dynasty and Montreal's Elite. The Redpath family was a cornerstone of Montreal's English-speaking elite. Their immense fortune built in the foundations of the Redpath Sugar Company and large-scale construction projects like the Lachine Canal. Their home, a grand mansion located in the exclusive Golden Square Mile neighborhood, was not merely a residence but a symbol of their status and influence. This enclave was a microcosm of wealth, where affluent families were closely interconnected through business alliances and strategic marriages, ensuring that power and prestige remained within a select circle. The social context created a fundamental tension between the family's public standing and the intense need for domestic privacy. At a time when the rise of sensationalist journalism threatened to expose private matters to public scrutiny, the Redpaths' power relied on their ability to control their narrative and keep their affairs behind closed doors. The family's adherence to the era's values of home, family, and seclusion dictated a careful negotiation of public and private spaces. The very architecture of their mansion, with its separate entrances for guests, family, and servants, was designed to reinforce this strict division, making the home a site of public performances of familial and class identity. The societal imperative to maintain appearances and conceal private anguish became the central force that shaped the events following the tragedy, providing the underlying framework for the subsequent subversion of the legal process. The family's burden of ill health. Beneath the veneer of their charmed lives, the Redpath family was grappling with a profound and persistent burden of chronic illness. Ada Maria Redpath had a long history of poor health, documented in family letters and diaries, with symptoms including sleeplessness, depression, and nervousness, conditions often referred to as hysteria at the time. Her eldest son, Peter, was also seriously ill with tuberculosis. This left Jocelyn Clifford, the youngest son and a law student, with the responsibility of managing the family's fortune and business affairs. However, Clifford also suffered from epilepsy, a condition that was poorly understood and widely feared in 1901. The chronic nature of these illnesses created a constant state of strain and amplified existing family tensions. As the eldest and only daughter, Amy Redpath took on the role of primary caregiver and household manager. Responsibility that her diaries suggest was a significant burden on her life. She was compelled to postpone her own marriage to care for her ailing mother. This accumulation of physical and emotional burdens on Ada, Amy, and Clifford created a volatile atmosphere. It is plausible that the pressures of managing the household and navigating the family's illnesses could have provided a strong psychological motive for a violent act from within the family, regardless of any financial motive. Up next, a flawed and hasty investigation. Part 2. A flawed and hasty investigation. The events of June 13, 1901. The public record of the events relies almost entirely on the testimonies given at the coroner's inquest held the day after the shootings. According to the official transcript of Peter Redpath's testimony, he saw his brother Clifford arrive home around 6 o'clock p.m., noting that he seemed ill and was tired. A few seconds later, Peter reported hearing a shot, followed by two others. He then ran upstairs, broke down the door to Ada's bedroom, and discovered the scene. His mother and brother lying in a pool of blood, with a revolver on the floor a foot away from him, Clifford, near his hand. Peter was followed by the servant, Rosa Shallow, who corroborated the general details of the discovery. The family physician, Dr. Thomas Roddick, was called to the scene, rather than the police. A family-controlled inquest. In a move that is extraordinary by modern standards, the police were never called to the scene. Instead, a coroner's inquest was hastily convened in the Redpath mansion itself the following day, June 14. This inquest was presided over by Coroner Ed McMahon and a jury of 13 leading citizens of Montreal. An assembly that included witnesses like Peter Redpath, Dr. Roddick, Dr. Hugh Patton, Dr. Rollo Campbell, Rosa Shallow, and Charles James Fleet. The choice to bypass a police investigation and conduct the inquiry in a private home was a decisive act. The absence of police on the night of the crime and their apparent non-involvement in the official investigation can be understood by examining the legal and social framework of the time. The coroner's office in Quebec was a public office, with primary jurisdiction over suspicions or violent deaths. While a coroner could legally require a peace officer to conduct an investigation, the police force in 1901 that was much smaller and still forming its forensic identification unit was likely more inclined to defer to the authority of a wealthy family's coroner. The Redpath family's privileged status almost certainly allowed them to manipulate the system, dictating the terms of the inquest and ensuring that the only official record of the double shooting was a report they helped shape. This event highlights how the private power of the elite could effectively subvert public justice in turn-of-the-century Montreal. The conflicting evidence, a study in contradiction. The inquest conclusions rest on a series of testimonies that are fraught with contradictions. The most significant discrepancy centers on the number of firearms found in Ada's bedroom. Peter Redpath testified to finding only a single revolver. However, two other witnesses, Dr. Hugh Patton and the servant Rosa Shallow, both testified to seeing two revolvers at the scene. Presence of a second gun strongly implies that a third person was involved and that the event was not a simple murder-suicide. Another crucial point of contention concerns Dr. Thomas Roddick's testimony. As a family's personal physician, his opinion was pivotal to the final verdict. He stated under oath that he had arrived at the mansion, examined both bodies, and declared his professional opinion that Clifford, in an epileptic state, had killed his mother and then himself. Yet contemporary newspaper accounts of the event contradict his statement, reporting that Dr. Roddick did not return to Montreal until the day after the shootings. This suggests that he may have provided a key medical opinion without a proper on-site examination. This potential duplicity, combined with the fact that he married the victim's daughter, Amy, 5 years later, adds considerable weight to the theory of a familial cover-up. By providing a medically sanctioned explanation, Dr. Roddick furnished the family with a respectable narrative to control public perception and avoid scandal. The hasty burial and the lack of records. The final acts of the family following the tragedy are arguably the most suspicious. Both Ada and Clifford were buried within 48 hours of their deaths in a private funeral at St. John the Evangelist Church. Although Victorian funeral customs could sometimes involve swift burial, this being this case appears to be a deliberate act of concealment, a ritual of secrecy designed to physically remove the bodies from public and legal scrutiny before any further investigation could take place. This was part of a series of maneuvers designed to make secret the public event and ensure the deaths were reinscribed within class norms of decorum and conduct. The family's silence was further cemented by the destruction of bereavement letters, a fact that Amy Redpath mentioned in her own correspondence. The lack of any official suicide record in the city of Montreal for June 1901 serves as a stark, factual contradiction to the coroner's verdict, demonstrating the extent to which the public record was sanitized to protect the family's reputation. Up next, unraveling the theories and motives. Part 3. Unraveling the theories and motives. The official verdict re-examined Clifford Redpath's burden. The coroner's verdict that Clifford killed his mother while unconscious of what he was doing and temporarily insane owing to an epileptic attack was the official explanation for the deaths. This conclusion, however, is highly questionable. There are no mentions of Clifford's epilepsy in Amy's extensive diaries prior to the event, a fact that challenges the idea that his condition was a significant, long-standing issue. Furthermore, Clifford was a promising law student who had just submitted an application to write his bar exams. He was a capable individual who had assumed the significant responsibility of managing the family's wealth. The verdict of temporary insanity, while compassionate, was a convenient and face-saving way to explain the crime without assigning criminal blame, thereby preserving the Redpath name for the scandal of murder. It was a societal decision, facilitated by the primitive understanding and stigma surrounding mental and neurological illnesses at the time. The other suspects and theories. Given the many inconsistencies in the official account, a number of alternative theories have been posited regarding the tragic events. Primary suspects are close family members who were present at the mansion that evening and stood to benefit from the deaths. The motivations for a murder-suicide are generally categorized as financial, psychological, or an attempt to cover up a secret. Number 1. The conflicting evidence, a study in contradiction. The official narrative of the murder-suicide is deeply compromised by contradictory statements given by the key witnesses at the inquest. Peter Redpath, the first family member at the scene, testified that he heard a shot followed by 2 others, and found only a single revolver near his brother Clifford's hand. However, the reliability of his account is questionable, as reports indicate his story about the number of shots varied. Crucially, Peter's testimony regarding the weapon was contradicted by 2 other witnesses, Dr. Hugh Patton and the servant Rosa Shallow, both of whom stated under oath that they saw 2 revolvers near Clifford Redpath's body. Another key conflict involves Dr. Thomas Roddick, the family physician whose medical opinion drove the final verdict. Roddick testified that he arrived at the mansion immediately to examine the bodies. Yet contemporary newspaper reports suggest he did not return to Montreal until the day after the shootings, raising doubts about his ability to conduct a proper, immediate examination and lending weight to the theory of a cover-up. Number 2. The potential suspects and contested motives. Beyond Clifford, investigators and historians have focused on several close family members and associates who were potential suspects and stood to gain either financially or psychologically from the deaths. Peter Redpath. As the eldest surviving son, Peter stood to inherit a significant portion of Ada's wealth. He was the individual who purportedly discovered the bodies, a pattern sometimes observed in murder cases. His credibility is weakened by his inconsistent testimony regarding the number of shots and the weapons found at the scene. Countering the theory of his involvement is the fact that Peter was seriously ill with tuberculosis and died within a year of the tragedy, making his capacity and motive to commit a double murder questionable. Amy Redpath. The eldest daughter, Amy, served as a primary caregiver for her chronically ill mother Ada and her brother Peter. Her diaries reveal the immense burden of this responsibility, noting that her mother's life felt like a burden to her. This suggested a strong psychological motive, a desire for independence and relief from caregiving duties. Suspicion is amplified by her latter marriage to Dr. Thomas Roddick, the physician who provided the official and convenient temporary insanity verdict. However, Amy appeared deeply devoted to her family, and since her brother Peter was still alive, she did not immediately gain full financial control of the estate. Dr. Thomas Roddick. The family physician's actions raised suspicion due to his pivotal role in creating the temporary insanity verdict and his subsequent marriage to Amy. His quick medical conclusion, possibly without having been present at the scene on the night of the shooting, suggests he may have fabricated a medical narrative to shield the family, and specifically Amy, from scandal and legal repercussions. Despite this, Roddick was a distinguished public figure, and participating in a criminal cover-up would have jeopardized his professional standing. Other theories? Alternative theories include the possibility that Ada herself committed a murder-suicide, perhaps as a mercy killing in a fit of depression, though this is challenged by the fact that she had guests invited to dinner that night. Women of that era rarely used guns for suicide. The notion of an intruder is weakened by the lack of evidence pointing to outsiders or a planned crime. Up next, the enduring legacy of a Gilded Age mystery. Part 4. The enduring legacy of a Gilded Age mystery. The loss of the crime scene. A significant factor contributing to the mystery's persistence is the eventual demolition of the Redpath mansion itself. This act ensured that any remaining physical evidence of the crime, which could have definitively settled the matter, was permanently lost. The absence of a physical space to revisit, coupled with the family's swift actions in the immediate aftermath, has ensured that the trail of clues has long since run cold. The legacy of silence. The surviving Redpath family members created an impenetrable wall of silence around the tragic event, refusing to discuss the matter publicly or even among themselves. This deliberate silence contributed significantly to the enduring mystery. The destruction of personal records such as condolence letters further cemented the lack of a public record of the family's emotional response. The immense sympathy and numerous eulogies for Clifford, juxtaposed with the few, if any, references to Ada in surviving correspondence, suggest a complicated family dynamic and a potential unspoken blame for Ada. A case study in power and privilege. The Redpath mystery is more than an unsolved crime. It's a profound historical document that reveals the values, anxieties, and legal power of Montreal's elite in the early 20th century. The case demonstrates how a powerful family operating under the Victorian imperative of privacy and discretion could manipulate the social and legal systems to protect their reputation at all costs. The family's wealth and influence allowed them to co-opt the inquest process, ensuring a verdict that was socially acceptable rather than factually rigorous. And in conclusion, the official verdict of the Redpath inquest, a murder-suicide committed during a temporary state of insanity, is deeply undermined by a wealth of contradictory evidence, including conflicting testimonies regarding the number of guns, the suspicious role of the family physician, and the general irregularity of the proceedings. While the identity of the true perpetrator may be forever lost to history, the case provides an invaluable examination of the mechanisms of power and privilege. It serves as a compelling testament to a society where reputation was guarded with the same fervor as wealth, where a family's ability to control its own narrative could triumph over the pursuit of justice. Because every case deserves answers, and every victim deserves justice. Subscribe now to Ontario Cold Cases, Canada's true crime podcast. Episodes available wherever you get your podcasts.